Good morning, everyone. Welcome to FEBE 3 Morning. We appreciate your attendance today. We know it's a little hard after a holiday. It was also hard for our original speaker because he canceled. So I did create a presentation to present today, so I hope you'll bear with me because I am all of a sudden filling in at the last minute. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lisa Mackin. I'm with Neo LaunchNet. I've been there, I was informed today's my 90th day, so 3 months under the belt. So today I'm going to talk about how to be your own publicist. I know it's very hard for a lot of people who have not been in journalism or media of anything to wrap their head around what it is to actually work with the media and with how to get your message out there. So what I'm going to do today is just touch upon some of the things I've learned in my background to help ease that transition and before you have to actually hire someone to be your publicist and help you through that maze. So as you can see from my background, I'm older. So I have a journalism degree with a concentration in public relations from Kent State, and I have had 25 years of experience in corporate, agency, and nonprofit public relations. Now, with that, I mean everything, run the gamut. Everything from working at the Akron Symphony as a PR assistant to a senior account director at an ad agency. I also was the original spokesperson for the Ohio eCheck the program that was run by the state, so I do have some legal affairs background as well. But all these different things that I've done have helped me just gain experience along the way and open my eyes to what a publicist can do and what people can do for themselves as well as me helping them. I also, for a time while my son was young, I worked as a freelance public relations person, and I would help create marketing plans for a lot of small businesses. And a lot of times they were things that were common sense to them, but they didn't necessarily know how to formulate it and get it to where they needed it to be. So that's what I'm going to hopefully help with you today, is to help you formulate your marketing plan and how to actually present it to the media. So let's start from the basics. What's the difference? You hear these words: marketing, advertising, public relations. What do they really mean? Marketing is basically an umbrella term for all of these different things and how to get your message to different people. Advertising is a paid message. So advertising is when you say, I'm going to give you this money and I'm going to expect to see either an ad or a mention of my company or something very precise with your own wording. You have control over that message with how it appears and in what way it appears, through a magazine, through a newspaper, through a TV ad, because you have paid for it and then you know exactly what you're getting for your money. Public relations is free publicity. That's where I come in. It's great to pay, but why pay if you don't have to? Public relations is creating a message and getting the media excited to hear about what you have to say. It is word of mouth many times. It's also a matter of creating events or publicizing just the good works you do every day in your business and letting people know that, hey, we're growing, we're adding staff. We are doing newsletters, we're doing so many different things. It's just reaching out and constantly creating a buzz about who you are and what your company is. So let's talk about your corporate identity. Everybody thinks that when they have their company created, that everybody assumes what their logo means. They assume that the title of their company is transparent to the people at large, and what they do is obvious. Not necessarily so. You got to think of a keep it simple, stupid method, and you have to realize that the people that you might be presenting to don't really have a good idea of who you are and what you do. That's why it's really imperative that you have a very good corporate identity as far as your name and as far as your logo and as far as what your basic elevator statement is of who you are and how you explain yourself. All of these logos, you don't even have to read most of them to know who they are. That is the brilliance of having a very good logo. And I know we have many people who come to our FEBE presentations who can help with logo design, and even freelance graphic artists or even students who are in graphic design can help with these if you don't feel like you have a strong logo. But my son, when he was in kindergarten, they did a little project with them. And it was right when the kids were just starting to read, when they were 5 and 6 years old. and they wanted them to cut out logos of places where they knew the name of the store without reading it. For example, you don't have to know that Target says Target. All you see is the red and white circles, and you know that's Target. The orange for Home Depot, Coca-Cola. People who don't know English know that logo. So having a very strong logo is so important to who you are and what you do. Another thing about logos, and you have to make a very conscious effort, when you are creating your logo, how is it going to look when it's photocopied? How is it going to look when it's printed? Today it's not as important as it used to be, but when you do 4-color process printing, if your logo is in 4 colors, every time you print your logo, you're talking about 4 passes of color. It gets expensive. So if you don't want to spend a lot of money on business cards, letterhead, and all of these things, you might want to do a simpler logo that just has 1 color. And another key is, every time you make your logo, make sure it looks really good when printed in black and white, because most people, regardless of what kind of printer they have, when they print something out, it's in black and white. So you want to make sure your logo appears very strong. Another thing I want to talk about is with logos. Logos age. Art looks old. I pulled out Burger King because you can see from the years that they've modified that logo tremendously. The man on the hamburger would not look good necessarily photocopied. You kind of lose, well, what's the company name? So you see a man on a hamburger. But as you can see, over the years, the logo has been updated, revitalized, refreshed. So if you have an older company that maybe needs to look at your logo, that's an important thing to do to see how it appears to an outsider. So when you are deciding on how to communicate your business, you have to have an idea. What road are you heading down? What is the goal? What is the destination? So people like to say, oh, I want everybody to know about me. Well, that doesn't necessarily produce sales. And people I know, my generation, I look to people like Ali and Kevin and say, okay, social media. To me, it's a blur, because all of it, the Twitter, the Facebook, everything to me just molds into one. I'm back of the day where we used to contact radio stations, we used to contact TV stations, we used to contact newspapers. Newspapers are dying. It's so sad, but they are. So I look to the younger generation to help me with where is the best way to filter our message and get it out there. So when it comes to research, you have to know yourself, know your customers, know your competition, and know your critics. By that I mean, is what people say about you truly what is the persona you want of your company? When people say Google yourself, same thing, Google your company. What is the word on the street? What are people saying about your strengths, your weaknesses, your market? It's great to have word-of-mouth customers. Who are those word-of-mouth customers? Why are they your champions? What makes them different from other people who come into your business or you cross paths with? How do you make somebody who you've had an encounter with as a business person be passionate about what you do? And how to make them your voice when you aren't there in the room. That's one of the strongest things that you could have as an advocate for your business. When you say know your competition, who are the key players in your area, whether it be your business, whether it be logistically right next door, and also steal from your competitions. Just like we were talking about, if you know that McDonald's is doing all this research and let's say Elyria, Ohio is a great place on this corner to put a new McDonald's, if you're Burger King, why wouldn't you look at it and say the same thing? Same thing with your business. Who are the key players? Who's taking the money that could be in your pocket and putting it into theirs? Know your critics. You've got to read Yelp, LinkedIn, Facebook. What are people saying about you? Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. What are people saying about you? And sometimes it's worth it to go to battle if people have a misconception, and sometimes it's not worth it. Obviously, you don't want to get into like a schoolyard fight with anybody. But if there's a common theme that you see in the critiques written about you, you're too expensive, your customer service is lacking, well, those are things that can be addressed. Sometimes you can say with you're too expensive, well, you get what you pay for. This is the value added that we have with our product. So yes, we may charge a little bit up front, but this is why we do charge a little bit up front, and this is the value that we're giving you. So one of the things that is a basic public relations tool is a press release. Now, press releases may seem daunting at first, but they're really not. When you need to do a press release when you have real news to tell. We're opening a new store is good information. We are adding employees, good information. Not, oh, it's Tuesday. That's not good information. So you want to use news releases where they make sense. Anytime you have real news to tell. So I'm going to break down the elements of a news release. First of all, news. When this goes past any editor's desk, they know what it is. You tell them when you want the information released. If you're going to launch a new product, you're not ready yet, you tell them don't release it until this date. Otherwise, you can say it's for immediate release. The contact information. Who do they contact? Newspapers are kind of like human resources departments when they are looking at information. They don't want to have to look at the very bottom to see who the contact information is. Give it to them at the top. This is how I get a hold of this person. This is their email address. This is the date that this was written. Give it a title. Like I did this one, CLE Splash Swimming attends first team meet. My son's swim team the coaches moved from the French Creek YMCA and they formed their own team. So they needed a press release. We formed our own team. We're having our first meet. This was picked up by several of the local newspapers. Is it going to change world peace? No, but we had some pretty nice press. We had new team members because of this press release. You put the location of where the event or where the business is located and the date. When you are writing a press release, the 5 W's apply in journalism. Who, what, where, why, when, and how. You have to put the pertinent information right up in the first paragraph. From there, you can go on and explain more details of that first paragraph. But just like when you're in English at school and you're learning how to write compositions for the first time, you're taught you have your opening sentence, you have your 3 supporting lines, and you have your closing sentence, and then how your paragraphs follow after. There is a pattern to a press release. It's called an inverted pyramid style. So when you think about it, your first paragraph has all your vital information, and then it tapers down from there to the least important information. Because if you can get an editor to read past that first paragraph, you're fortunate. So you want to put all the key elements at the very front. So when you're sending this out, people will know what to look at. Now, when I say sending out information to editors and to the media, how do you find this media? One of the websites I love, Mondo Times. Free subscriptions. Wonderful. So I've highlighted it up in the red box. You can click for free. All you do is put in your email address. And then from there, they give you every media site that you can imagine. They give you newspapers, they give you TV, they give you other media outlets that you can use. And so depending on what your business is and how far of a reach, you can narrow that down to say, who are the key editors in my market? Which that's hard to find because it's constantly changing. As you know, just from watching the local TV stations, you're always seeing new faces, new people. Behind the scenes, it's the same thing. You have new editors, you have new managers all the time. So you can actually send things worldwide. Let's say you have a company that sells specialty olive oils or something, and you want to communicate this where you get your olive oils from, let's say in Italy. You can actually go and find the Italian newspapers in that little place that you get your oil from and market to them too. In today's world, you don't have to limit yourself on a specific demographic. You can limit yourself. It's limitless because the world now is limitless with where you can meet people and where you can send things through. So once you have all these names and information, this is just an Excel spreadsheet that I created. And what I do is I put all this information in and I send to all these email addresses my press release. And then I wait a few days and then I make a phone call to say, did you get it? Let me follow up with that. Or you can even do an additional email to these people saying, I'd like to follow up with you on this press release. A lot of public relations, media relations is just constant follow-up and just somewhat badgering, not meanly, but somewhat badgering, saying, hey, this is important. Now, obviously, if there's a big news of the day, you'll get bumped, but through this methodology, you might have on a slow business day, you all of a sudden might have a TV station say, hey, that sounds interesting, good filler, let me put you in. For example, let's say you run a pizza shop and you have recently won an award. You can tell them, we're great visually, we can toss pizzas on air. The people on TV are looking for visual things. So you can say, hey, can I come on your afternoon show and we'll toss some pizzas and talk about this award we won. And this is how you get your hits, this is how you get your message out to wider audiences. Now, another thing too with print media especially, Crain's Cleveland Business, a gold standard for anybody who's trying to run a business. They always are having their newspapers have lists. They have different information each month. That is called a media calendar. Media calendars are how the media, they decide this almost like you look at a school calendar and you can tell, like here at LCCC, the curriculum that's coming up well in advance. Same thing with all media. If you go to the very bottom of all of the pages, you will see how it says media calendar or about us or news media. In that media calendar, you'll find a PDF that talks about every single thing that's coming up for the next year. They have every issue planned out, what the articles are going to be, what focus it's going to be. For example, they have a real estate listing section. You will see all the advertising for realtors in that particular section. They always have their book of lists. If you're a small company, you want to be included on that because a lot of people save the Crain's Cleveland Business and use it almost as their Bible for the rest of the year. And again, this is all free. It's just a matter of knowing where to look. So when you hand someone in your media information, you have to think about how am I presenting myself on paper as well as a professional in your day-to-day life. Obviously, when you're going to a meeting, you dress up, you want to look nice. Same thing with your marketing materials. To create a media kit, even if you just have stickers of your logo on a folder, you can put information like your company history, the biographies of the key people, any press releases you've written, brochures, flyers, ads. You want everything to have a cohesive look for your corporate identity. So I know we're in our office even for Neo LaunchNet. We've had many people creating different things. Well, over time, everybody has their own take on how things look. We've now created templates, so when we do things, they look similar each time. I suggest you do the same for your company. If you do a brochure, don't have one brochure in maybe red and another one in yellow unless that's part of your marketing concept. For example, if you look at Federal Express, they have their ground delivery all has one color. Their air delivery all has one color. So that's color coded, but that's part of their corporate identity. When you are creating your marketing materials, you want them so when they're all together, you can see that they are a family of media information that all looks similar. And you put this in a folder and you can hand it to somebody and say in the press or even potential customers and say, this is our information, this is who we are. When I worked at McKinney Advertising, we created a marketing piece that basically told who we were, what we were about, and that became our website. You can do it in reverse. If you have a website that's good and clean, that has a nice homepage, and then has from there about who your key players are, what is your company history, what is your timeline. You can take each of those elements and make it an element of your media kit. And so again, what is written on a screen and what's written on paper is the same thing that you're handing out. So it's the same consistent message that everyone receives. Crisis communications plans. You don't know you need one till you're in the middle of a crisis. For example, our speaker didn't attend today. I had a plan. I said, okay, I'm going to make up a presentation just in case we have a speaker who cancels last minute. That's why I'm here in front of you today. When I worked at Ohio E-Check, whether you love or dislike the program, it was an amazing experience for me as a young public relations manager. I was thrown in front of TV cameras like you couldn't believe. All of a sudden, I was talking with legislators in Columbus, and I was the face of Ohio E-Check. It was, every day was a crisis, working 60, 70-hour weeks. But you have to understand that either you control the crisis or the crisis controls you. When we had somebody, we would have people appear on TV and all of a sudden say, this E-Check ruined my car. My mechanic will back me up. They ruined my car. We had to respond. And we had to do it in a way that was measured and controlled. So basically we had, out of the company, we had approximately 400 employees. Me and my boss were the only spokespeople. If anybody tried to interview somebody at one of the E-Check stations, they were told, you need to speak with Lisa or Steve. Every morning, Steve and I sat down, okay, what did each of the TV stations run about us the night before? What are we prepared for? We always would have 5 talking points. Regardless of the questions you are asked, what are the main things that you want this reporter to know or the audience to know before you get done with them? For example, if you watch any of the Sunday morning talk shows, they can say, well, Senator, what do you think about the sky today? Is it blue or is it gray? They'll say, that's wonderful, but our constituents want to know this. They do their talking point. So the key is you stay cool and controlled and you keep your message on point, and that way you can control the message. There were times where Carl Monday used to look like he was interviewing me on the final piece of the news. I never met the man. He would send his assistant, Mark, to come and film me, and they would do cutaways where all of a sudden he would be looking like he was interviewing me, and yet his assistant was in front of me with a camera. So what the audience saw was very different than what was happening. And then they would try to do gotcha moments where I would leave, where actually I would go in the back room, and they'd walk out and start interviewing customers. So I would have some of the employees go out and push a broom and listen, what's being said? So I know how to respond. So if they were saying, oh, I hate this E-Check, or oh, this isn't too bad, I support doing things for the environment, I was ready for whatever that cameraman was getting. So crisis communications plans can look like whatever it is your company needs. Sit down for a day or two with all of your employees and think, what is the worst case scenario that can happen in my business? What if there is a flood and my building is destroyed, or a fire? What if one of my products goes wrong? What do I do? Think of the worst case scenarios when they're not happening and figure out, how am I going to respond to this? Because when it comes down to it, if it does happen, God forbid it does happen, you at least are prepared with something. There's my you can do it cheerleader. Marketing and advertising seem like they're these big behemoths that can be very intimidating. However, we journalism students, there are a lot of us out there always looking for work. Use that to your advantage. There are always PR consultants, there are always students, there are always people who can help you if you don't have the time or energy to focus on a marketing plan or to write something. For example, let's say that your business is in finance and you hate writing. My twin sister has a finance degree from John Carroll. She will not do anything worth writing. I wrote all of her English papers. I'm the opposite. I can't do anything finance. So if I'm a financial person and I'm thinking, oh, all this writing just seems too overwhelming for me, well, find someone who loves to write. My passion is writing. So find somebody who you can do and say, hey, I'll give you $20 if you write up a brochure for me. Trust me, the starving journalism students will love that, and they'll take you up on that. And same thing, all of these things that are being created for you can then become your website, your social media, and all of these other elements that you need to actually create who you are to the outside world.